Today's guest certainly has an amazing transformational story from a past childhood trauma that ended up causing a lot of depression and pain. She found herself at almost 350 pounds before waking up and realizing it was time to take control over her life, address the situation, and turn her pain into power. It is an amazing story, and I encourage you to take a screenshot of this and tag me on social media so that I can pass it along to her so she knows that her story is making an impact. So do me a favor and do that today. Without further ado, I want to welcome to the show, Sherrie.
All right. So Sherrie, welcome to the show. And let's just kick it off and kind of hear the backstory of...
Thank you for actually having me. Really appreciate it. To be able to share this, my journey and my story to hopefully help others. But I really, it all kind of started when I've always known I've been kind of overweight, especially my later teens and, in my 20s and young adult life. So I knew I was always overweight, and it just continued to progressively get worse. But what I didn't realize is just everything that my past, from my childhood that played a part of it, and into leading up to that, as far as going through depression, and that I was all of a sudden 350 pounds. I'm getting ready to be 30 years old. So it was over 350 pounds. So at that point I realized I needed to, make some changes. But what I didn't realize at the time is going through a traumatic experience in life. Everybody probably has their own version of what they've gone through. It could be anything. Mine is sexual abuse for 4 years, from the time I was 12 till I was 16. It was just, those 4 years obviously were very, very hard, very difficult. Didn't want to be around a lot of people. I started to do activities that isolated myself, as far as I got out of sports. I got out of anything that involved a group except for my music. I do play violin and sing and play piano, but I just made it a point to try not to have a lot of interaction. I kind of shut off, did my own thing, and then right out of high school I did start college, but then I quit. Again, I just tried to avoid people. Didn't realize at the time that I was actually going through depression, but that's pretty much what it was. I didn't work out. I didn't do anything except work, go home, eat, and obviously I overate, and I ate things that were not healthy. So next thing I know, here I'm approaching my 30th birthday, and I'm over 350 pounds, and I'm depressed. And then all of a sudden, everything from the past started to come back up. At that point, I finally realized I needed to deal with it. So at that point, I actually sought a counselor, and I got professional help for the counseling of the actual sexual abuse. I dealt with that. After a couple years, I would say, I finally realized I needed to continue taking my life back, because that's pretty much what happened. Is I allowed a situation, a person that harmed me for 4 years, basically control my life, and I allowed that because that's how I dealt with it. By dealing with it, I basically didn't deal with it, is what happened. So I decided that after a couple of years of counseling, I was in a better place mentally. I knew I was no longer the person at fault. I no longer, I knew I no longer did anything wrong. Things still triggered. I mean, even to this day, I still have things that trigger the memories, the nightmares and stuff, but I handle them a lot better. And so then I thought, you know what, I need to go back to school. So I went back to college. I got my degree, and my bachelor's degree in business management. And then I was like, okay, now it's time to take my health back. So it'll be actually 8 years come March 5th. So in 2 weeks, I'll be with Michael at Fitness Together for 8 years. It was very scary. I made an appointment with him because I knew, just like everybody probably that's overweight or wanting to lose weight, whether it's 10 pounds or, 150 pounds that somebody needs to lose. It's very hard to do it on your own. I tried every fat diet. I tried to do this on my own. every year, January 1st, I was signing up for a new gym membership. I did a tour of the gym, stayed one day, and then I never went back. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that.
Absolutely.
If I could just have the money back I invested in those gyms, I would, that would be great.
Would have paid for college tuition, right?
Yes, yeah. But it was very scary. So I knew I needed professional help. And at that point, I knew I needed to invest in an actual personal trainer. I had been fortunate. I don't know how. I was never diagnosed with any type of heart disease or diabetes or anything like that. I really don't know how, because it does run in my family. So I knew I needed to control it now. So I did a lot of research. I'm a research person. So I did a lot of research for about 2 weeks, narrowed it down to a few places. When I got a couple of responses back, Michael was one of them. And for some reason, it felt right over the phone. So I made an appointment. I actually pulled up in the parking lot and almost didn't go in. But something told me I needed to just go ahead and get through this fear, face it, because I need help. If not, I'm going to be dead soon. I'm not going to, live very long if I don't get this under control, and I don't know what to do. So I walked in. What I liked about Michael is that he's very honest, and I could tell he wasn't in just to sell a package or to sell a membership. He truly wants clients that are there to get help and want help and be there. And I remember, it's been 8 years, but I remember exactly, he told me, after we talked for a little while, he said, well, it sounds like you're committed to this, and that's what I want, because he said, I don't want you wasting your time and money or our time. He said, because there's people that want to be here. And I also appreciate the fact that he was very honest with me and said, we're here to help you. We're going to give you all the tools you need. It's just up to you to do it. And he said, we'll pat you on the back when we need to, but we're going to kick your butt when we have to. And he's lived up to that promise the whole 8 years. There's times there's times it's a great job, Sherrie, and there's times that, what are you doing? And I get, I get called out. So, but that's why I've been successful too. I always tell people I've been successful because he's told me what I needed to hear, not what I wanted to hear. But over the years, he's helped me through a lot. I still struggle. I struggled a lot still in the beginning with not just my physical health, but I talk about being healthy is more than just being healthy in a fitness way and physically, but mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And those are just 4 things I try to focus on. And he's helped me a lot with all of those, from getting through some struggles in my faith to, just being able to help me through some emotional stuff. And it all kind of, it just all ties together, because if you're not healthy in one area, it's going to overflow into another area. And so I've been very fortunate that I have found someone like Michael and the trainers at FT. So, but in the 8 years, I've managed to lose over 100 pounds and keep it off.
Huge.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a lot of work. I think the last few years have actually been the hardest for me, just because I'm kind of like, I've kept it off, but I'm still at that point where it's like, I still have weight to lose. I still want, the body fat. I got body fat I need to lose, inches and all that, but it's just not coming off the way we want it to, but that's what he's there for, and he's helping me get through that. But the important thing is I'm not giving up, no matter how many times I struggle or I get discouraged. I'm very fortunate to have a great support system to where I don't give up. And I go in there and I just continue, just putting in the work. When I first started, obviously I was over 350 pounds, so I wasn't doing a whole lot. I started out 2 days a week with Michael and the trainers there at Fitness Together, 45 minutes a session. And so I literally only worked out twice a week for 45 minutes a day. over the time, as I continued to lose weight, become, more active, I was able to do more. So I increased to 3 days and then 4 days. And then I started to build in extra cardio. And then now here 8 years later, I'm literally doing things that not only did I ever imagine I could do, but that I would even consider doing. A few years ago, Michael, we're always trying to set goals. And so we put one way out there, and it was boxing. So he actually got me connected with some boxing coaches at the engine room, and they helped me train for a spar. So I did that. That was kind of scary, but it was a lot of fun. Then I decided, hey, I've done some 5Ks. Well, hey, why not let's just do a half marathon, because I'm crazy like that. So I was like, might as well push myself. So I did do a couple half marathons, one for actually St. Jude's. Running isn't my favorite, so I'm not, I train for them, I do them, and then I kind of get away from it and do something else. I think the big thing is it's not real, I don't want to say it's not challenging, but it's just, there's nothing new that you're really doing.
Yeah.
As far as a goal or anything, except going further or doing going from a half marathon to a marathon. But that just isn't something that I'm interested in as far as a goal. So then I said, okay, well, what else can I do? Because again, I'm a little crazy like that. Yeah. So I'm like, well, what else can I do? Because I'm always looking at getting outside my comfort zone, facing fears. And so I said, hey, I liked boxing, but let's do Taekwondo. So I've been doing that for a little over a year now with Jinx Martial Arts. And Mr. Dunham, who is our chief instructor and owner, he's really been a great help. And actually all the instructors and students, they're all there to just support you and help you. And so I started a little over a year ago, not exactly knowing what to expect, but it's actually become a very, very big part of my life in this short time of a year. I actually started out obviously as a white belt. I'm currently a green belt, and next week I'll be testing for my high level green belt.
Nice.
So it's a lot of fun, but it's really become a big part of my life as far as giving back as well. He's given me the opportunity to be able to help with some of the other kids classes. So I'm in there with helping lead, and the Little Warriors is what the class is called. So they're like 4 to 6 year olds.
No, that's the best to watch.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you have kids or not. That's the best to watch.
It is. They're fun. They're cute. They just, and they've got so much energy. It's like, yeah, you think, I mean, there's days I'm like, man, I've got all this energy. Then I go in there and I'm like, oh, they've got it all. But it's a lot of fun. And I also get to help with the beginners class, youth class, which is like 7 to 12 year olds. And that's a lot of fun as well. What I really want to be able to do is, give back to not just our academy, but these kids, let them know that there are positive role models, because so many times we don't, kids, they don't have those positive role models growing up. And I want them to know that I'm one of those. And so, and then plus I get something out of it too, as far as, I continue to learn even from the kids. So it's a great experience. And so here I am 8 years later, started out 2 days a week, and I actually train Monday through Saturday. So I train 6 days a week with Fitness Together. I go in at 5 a.m. with Michael.
Wow. Committed.
We get in there, we get it done. And then 4 nights a week, I'm at Taekwondo. So after I go to Fitness Together, I go to work, and then I go there. And I do either my classes or I help with classes. And it's a lot of time, but it's an investment for not just myself, but, like I said, especially with the Taekwondo, I'm able to get back to those kids. And it really means a lot to be able to have that opportunity. So, And I take it a day at a time. I tend to try to overthink things. Michael talks about we're a lot alike on we overthink things. It just causes more chaos. So I try not to do that, but every once in a while it happens. He has to reel me in sometimes and calm me down. But I try to just take a day at a time, and I just, I'm just always trying to look to better myself and somehow give back to and hopefully help somebody else, because that's where I'm at in my life right now as far as I want to be able to help others. I want my story to be able to tell someone that can relate, who's maybe afraid to speak up or afraid to get that help, that there are people out there that are there to support you and that will always be there to support you. And that's what I have between Michael at Fitness Together, Mr. Dunham at Jen's Martial Arts, and my family, my friends, and my coworkers. I have a huge support system, and I think that's one key to my success, besides me just getting in there and doing the work.
Well, first off, I just have to say thank you so much for the vulnerability to divulge everything of your story and your life, and the authenticity with which you speak, and sure as hell the inspiration that you definitely bring on so many fronts. So definitely thank you to start. And man, there's so much I want to dig into, but first it's like that shift. I know you were coming up on 30 and realizing the weight and all of this stuff, but you had talked about after the abuse, just needing to isolate and avoid groups and, just kind of repress everything, and it sounds like food became a coping mechanism to suppress the trauma. Is that kind of how everything spiraled?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then how did you come to this realization that you needed to work on this and break through this? Because it would have been so easy to continue to hide. Like, what created that initial momentum to say, I want to get help? I mean, I can piece together all these pieces of then got, 2 days a week to 3 days a week and easy with the fitness, but I'm blown away by the courage that it took to, invest in yourself and start that journey on the emotional, mental side, throughout all the trauma that led to everything. What caused that initial shift, that initial change to get you going?
Well, like I said, I was 29, getting ready to be 30, and I guess I started to kind of reflect on that. And I apologize if I start to get emotional. I've always enjoyed, as far as the kids, and I think because of the abuse I went through, it was just important for me. So like at church, I used to always help in the nursery. I guess I just wanted to be able to be someone a safe place for someone, because since I didn't have that for a few years in my life, it was just always important to know that, and I don't know, there's just always been something about kids that I'd love to help them, that make sure that they have a safe place to also help them succeed in life. And so, and I used to always I would want kids of my own. That still hasn't happened. But because I never allowed myself through those years to be in a positive relationship, or to even be in a relationship hardly at all. And the relationships I was in, they were not healthy relationships. And I look back now and think of, I know a lot of it is, at the time I felt like I didn't deserve someone in my life that was good. And so I just, so here I am getting ready to be 30, and I realized that I had not lived my life since the abuse started. And then once I told my parents about it when I was 16, even then, I never truly lived my life for me. I was living it for everybody else. I wanted to make everybody else happy. And so I didn't do things that made me happy. So then I'm like, okay, I'm going to be 30 years old. I quit college. I'm working 2 to 3 jobs just so I can avoid people. And am I ever going to have an opportunity to meet somebody that I deserve and have kids? And I kind of was like, oh my God, it's not going to happen. And I really started to get depressed. And that's when my major depression set in. And I started to realize it's because of what happened to me. And I didn't know what to do because I had never, ever confided in anybody except my parents when I was 16. And I never talked about it since then. I started to just at my coworkers, I would just like lash out at them. I'm like, what are you doing? You know, if they weren't doing something wrong, what are you doing? And my boss is like, what's going on with you? And I finally confided in him. And he said, you know what? You need help. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, he goes, we need to get you to EAP. And I was like, oh, well, I don't know about that. You know, I was really, because I was like a counselor, you know, and so anyway, he's the one that actually got me set up with our EAP program. And it was one of those other scary steps. I was outside the door of the office of the counselor for the first time. And I actually had to call him and tell him I didn't want to go in. And he's like, no, you need to go in. They're not going to make you talk anything, you know, about anything you don't want to, if you're not ready to, and just, you know, go in. And so that's what triggered that part of it. And that's the day that I started to see a counselor for everything. And they actually set me up with a counselor and a psychiatrist, which I didn't realize the difference. And basically, the difference is a counselor, we just sit there, we talk. They help me through the emotional part of it. The psychiatrist, they actually put me on medication management for the depression and the anxiety, and to help me get through that part of it, which I look back and I was only on medication for probably about 6 months. So I thought that was pretty good, and that they were able to take me off of it. Then I was just able to go through counseling and kind of deal with everything. But we just worked through it all. My pastor stepped in. I went to him and he helped me through a lot of it. And just through, you know, that after a couple of years, you know, I got through realizing that I don't have to forgive that person for them. It's for me. And, you know, just learning that the memories are always going to be there. Something's going to trigger it. But how do I want to deal with it? How do I need to deal with it? I now have the tools and resources to deal with that. So I'm not, you know, going into that depression mode and want to shut myself away from the world. And so once I was better with that, that's when I realized I needed to just get my life back together. And like I mentioned before, that's when I went back to school and went back to college. And just little by little, I realized I've got to get healthier in every way possible. And so once I got I felt like once I got mentally and emotionally healthier, that I could start focusing on my actual physical health.
I'm so happy you were willing to share all of those pieces, because I mean, I think that can be the biggest struggle for people. And as you mentioned at the very beginning, we've all been through our own forms of childhood trauma and different things. And you know, sadly, there are many that have gone through situations similar to yours. And which is why I'm beyond honored you're willing to share the impact that it has had on kind of keeping score in your body, and what you've then been able to do and turn all of that pain into power, to be a leading light for these kids and be that safe place for them, and do so much. And just honor that you kind of shared how once you stopped running and sedating with all of these different techniques of staying really busy, and you were able to get really authentic and vulnerable with yourself, then you could do the work. And it sounds like that's where your knowledge of, if I'm willing to trust, if I'm willing to ask for support, then I'll get the result. And that's proven in kind of every area of your life. And what I think is really, really fascinating is, you know, so often, and I'm sure, you know, Michael Watkins at Fitness Together, he's been in the fitness space for 15 plus years, but he also sees it from so many levels. The guy is just beyond gifted as a coach. from the financial coaching space to the, gym owning physical space. He's amazing. And so I know he can completely relate to the fact that a lot of clients will come in and just want to work on losing weight. And it's this external thing of let's dive into nutrition and physicality and exercise and all these things. But you flipped it. And that's why I think you've had the transformation, and you worked on the mental and the emotional first, which is where it's all internal and comes from. And then you even took it further and worked on the educational side of, taking your career onto the path that you want to, so you felt secure, so that you could be in this safe place to work on the physical, which I think is phenomenal.
Hey, my friends, quick interruption to tell you about the next transformation retreat that we have coming up. Now, if you're a woman who has been taking care of everybody else and it's time to slow down, give yourself some self-care, put some systems into place by resting, rejuvenating, and be able to find that center of alignment to create some clarity and purpose back in your life. And this is the perfect opportunity for you. So head on over, retreat.truthoftransformation.com to get the rest of the details. All right, back to the show.
Yeah.
So I got to ask, there has to have been some roadblocks, some obstacles, some stumbles along the way that, would easily make you want to just, roll up and throw in the towel and give up. What has kind of been your driver along the way to keep going when you had 30 years almost of history that was proven to go the other direction? So what have you done to, get through those obstacles?
The big thing is the two big things for me is, one, I always remember where I used to be. And I know I never want to go back to that again. Never, not physically, mentally, emotionally. I don't ever want to go back to that again. Am I so naive to think that things aren't going to come up? No. Just last night had a traumatic experience in class because we're learning how to get out of chokeholds. That was something new. I'd been working with for the last couple of weeks on the chokehold, but it was more of a learning the technique first, so it wasn't real aggressive. Well, now it was taking it to the next level pretty much, where he wanted it to be more aggressive, because if you train non-aggressively and then you get out in the real world and somebody approaches you on the street and tries to attack you, you're going to freeze up because you haven't been trained. You haven't been working with someone who's coming at you aggressively. So last night in class, it's a safe environment, but yet for some reason, when we started to work on the chokehold, it really, I struggled with it, and I actually froze up, and I didn't think I would do that. So that's something I've got to work on. So I know that those moments are going to come up, as far as with, my past. There's going to be things that, as far as roadblocks, where I just get discouraged because I'm not getting the results I want, or I'm not getting them fast enough, or I feel like this is where I should be. So the big difference is, not only do I just remember where I used to be, and I don't ever want to go there again, but I've learned, like you mentioned, I ask for help. I go to the people that I need to go to. Michael's been a huge supporter. I would say over the last 8 years, probably 90% of the times I do go to him. I know he's probably like, please meet other people. But which I have, but I do have also, again, I have my pastor I reach out to when needed. And then now I've got Mr. Dunham with the academy, the Taekwondo Academy. And so I have him, and he helps out a lot as well. So I just have learned that if I'm feeling something, and I've gone to Michael, I want to say it's probably been probably about 4 or 5 years, I actually was like, okay, maybe I need to take a break. Maybe I just need to take a month off. So I actually went to him and said, I think I'm going to take a month off. And he wouldn't let me. He's like, no, I don't think that's the answer. Let's sit down and talk about this. So he's like, I get, it becomes, because you're doing it every day, and you get tired sometimes, you get discouraged because you're not getting those results, or, again, you think you should be where somewhere else in your journey. You should be further ahead in your goal. But it's not always going to be that way. And I just have to, and he always reminds me, the important thing is you don't give up. You're going to have setbacks, but you've got to keep moving forward. Deal with them and learn from them. And so that's the two big things that get me through roadblocks. Is that I don't want to ever go back to that, but I just have to keep moving forward, because there's really no other place to go except forward. And life is going to move forward anyway, so I might as well go with it, even if it's a slow process.
No, that's beautiful. It's going to keep going forward, so I might as well roll with it.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. No, I
and
love
meditation.
that. Really?
I don't know. You probably know Michael is big on meditation. So. Yep. And that's actually something he got me started doing a few years ago. And in fact, this morning when I was texting him, I'll let you know how my call goes. I said, but I'm nervous. He goes, meditate. So I said, I will. So, but yeah, it's just a lot of times it's just reflecting and taking time to slow down and reflect as well. So, yeah,
I think that's great. That's where you're going to find that appreciation for the journey, not just the result. And that sounds like that's a huge motivator to keep you on the journey.
Yes, it is. It is.
And then, so how have you gone about finding such crucial support, like your association with, Fitness Together and, pastor at church and confiding in people? Like, those are huge things. And sounds like from everything you're saying that who you associate with really determines your results and where you go. What has been your process for either finding out those people, like which ones to trust, or I don't even know really what I'm asking, but it seems like there's this system that you're using to acquire the right people in your life, and it's just fascinating to me. So any insights do you have?
Yes. I think I know what you're asking. And I can tell you prior, my process was, obviously I didn't trust anybody. So my answer in the past would be, don't even risk it. Now my process is like I said, I'm a research person anyway. So especially if I'm investing in, something big like a personal trainer or, something, my health, whether it's, hiring the trainer or taking another class or whatever. I do a lot of research. So like I said, with Fitness Together, I actually researched like a couple weeks before I actually, and I looked into these places and the people, and one of the things is I'm not saying I just have like endless money. I don't, but I have been blessed that I don't necessarily have to say, okay, I have to make this decision based on income or based on what the cost is. So when I was looking for a personal trainer, it wasn't much as, okay, who's the cheapest, who's the closest to my house, who's going to work for me, who is going to work for me that I can't afford, that I can actually invest in right now, because I need the best. And and that's not to sound conceited, but I just know you get what you pay for a lot of times. And so
sure.
Michael's 30 minutes away from me. I live in Sand Springs. He's in Jinx. It's like 30 minutes away. So I probably passed numerous personal trainers on my way to Jinx, but just from interviewing with other people, talking with him, that's what felt like was right for me. As far as individual people, it was just the same way with Taekwondo. I looked at different places, kind of researched them, and Jinx Martial Arts is what felt right for me. As far as individual people and who to open up to, I realized you can't build a relationship with someone, you can't have that rapport with someone if you don't take the risk of opening up to them. And I know it's important to have people like that in your life. So I realized that I've got to take those risks, as scary as they are. Am I going to get hurt? Have I been hurt by taking those risks here, even within the last few years? Yeah, I have. Have I trusted the wrong people? I have. But what I've learned is those people don't have to be a part of my life anymore. They don't have to be a part of this journey. And so it's just letting those people go. You know, when I realized they are not there for a positive influence in my life. And once you kind of get, especially if you're in, like with Mr. Dunham and stuff, I realized he was somebody I felt like I could open up to. So that's, you know, so I just kind of took that risk, and he's been a great support. It's only been a year, but he's been a very great support as well. Not just in my Taekwondo journey, but, you know, opening up to him about other things. And so he's become another person that I can, you know, open up to, without feeling like, you know, I'm going to get hurt, or that I can't trust him. And so that's kind of my process, is I've had to mentally realize that until you actually open up and try to build that rapport and relationship, you're not going to know if that's somebody you can trust or not.
Totally makes sense. And like you said, there's probably been some people that you opened up to and it didn't work out that way, but the ability to then just cut them off or just have them step outside of your world and move on was powerful. And I think the biggest takeaway I'm getting from every little piece of your story is that almost every time that you were willing to take a risk, it paid off in your benefit. You know, there was the phase of isolation and avoidance and suppression, but then everything else from opening up to that boss of yours and being able to take that risk, and then the risk to step into counseling, and then the risk to start going back to school, and then the risk to, it just, you know, I'm sitting here connecting dots from an 8-year perspective, and I'm sure there's a lot of little dots that don't go in that direction, of course, along the way. That's the beauty of life. But it's powerful to see that when we do take the risk that we know we need to take, things usually do seem to work out in our best interest. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, here you are 8 years later, and over 100 pounds lost, and going from 2 days a week to 6 days a week, plus all this Taekwondo, plus teaching, and just being able to fully live life, it seems like, to its highest capacity. And you can now just do whatever you want in essence, you know, from a 5K to a half marathon to, you know, working on some fighting. And I think that's really, really powerful. So couple more questions. And one I got to know is how long was that ramp up process from 2 days to 6 days? And how long was the process of losing 100 pounds? Because, you know, it's so easy to, in the world of social media and everything, and possibly even this show, you know, we get amazing guests like you who are willing to share these stories. And yet on the outside, you're going, oh, I need to lose 100 pounds. And we don't realize how long 8 years is. And so I'm just curious, you know, kind of that process that you allowed yourself, because it is a slow, long process. So I'm curious what that was for the ramp up and the weight loss.
Yeah. As far as the weight loss, I would say my first 100 pounds, it was within the first year, actually. That first 100 pounds. And I think that's why over the last 7 years, it's been, especially these last few years, it has been kind of a struggle, because I mean, obviously it's not going to come off fast. You know, it's not going to come off fast after you've lost so much weight. But yeah, I think it was like about a year that first 100 pounds came off. So, and I'm sorry, what was your other question?
Oh yeah, no, just curious as far as like how quickly you ramped up from 2 days to the amazing amount you're doing now.
Yeah, that took, I just started doing 6 days a week, probably about 4 years ago. It was about 4 years ago, and I started to go up to 6 days a week. They kind of do a balance where I obviously get my strength and cardio in, but I actually do a couple sessions a week where it's just mobility. So the trainer just stretches me pretty much. We work on some mobility exercises for anything that maybe I may be having an issue with, like currently my ankle kind of gives me some issues. So they help me work on things like that as well. So I'm getting a good balance by doing 6 days a week. So, but yeah, it probably took me about 5 years to get to that, or about 4 years to get to that 6 day mark. So I went from 2 days to 6 days in about 4 years.
That's great to hear. Just because it's so easy, sitting on the other side of a show like this and think like, oh, well, that's the only way I'm going to lose 100 pounds and get this is if I can block off my schedule and get to 6 days a week. And, if you're saying it took the first 4 years to eventually get to that, and it's not that you're training ridiculously hard with all those sessions. Some of them are just the, recovery aspect of mobility. I think that's really good for people to hear, that it doesn't have to be this over the top, beat yourself up all the time type situation. So that's beautiful. So I'm glad to hear. So last question, unless sound like you had something else to say.
Yeah, I was going to say to kind of add that as far as, going from, starting out slow, and then just working your way up to, I was going to say one of the things that when I first started this journey 8 years ago with Michael and Fitness Together is that in the past, I tried to change everything at once. I tried to, go to the gym every day. Which didn't happen. I tried to just change my diet overall. But I think one of the things that is making me successful this time and over this 8-year period is that I made a decision that I was not going to try to overwhelm myself. So when I walked in, I started out at that 2 days a week, but as far as my nutrition, I didn't try to follow some diet, which I tell everybody has a diet. It's just you either have a bad one or you have a good one, because a diet is what you eat. So if you eat, pizza every day and McDonald's and Big Macs and all that every day, that's your diet. It may not be the healthiest for you, but I didn't try to follow a meal plan. I didn't try to overwhelm myself with all this knowledge, because that becomes discouraging. And that's when I personally would tend to give up. So what I did in my nutrition is I did 2 things. I stopped eating fried foods and I stopped drinking pop. That's all I did in the beginning. And I did that for several months before Michael and them started to introduce like meal plans to me. I would say probably about 6 months is when they finally started to say, okay, let's try this meal plan and try to, and that's when I started to learn about actual nutrition, carbs, and what a simple carb was versus a complex carb and all that. So that's when, and then just over the years, I started to learn a little, and I'm still learning, but I learned a little at a time. And so I didn't just try to jump in there and work out every day or do, you don't even have to do 45 minutes a day, a day. You can start out even if it's 20 minutes. Just get going. That's why I always tell people when they come to me and ask for, what's the best way to get started? Well, just start out small and don't get overwhelmed, because that's when you'll get discouraged. So
absolutely.
So that's I think that's real important.
Yeah, no, beautiful. I'm so glad that you were able to put that all in there, because it's so easy to do too much and then, like you said, get discouraged, and it feels too overwhelming, too threatening. And I think oftentimes we make stuff complex to give ourselves an out so that we can say, well, wasn't able to follow it because it was just too complex. And it makes it so that we don't have to, go down the route of taking ownership of the fact that we made it that way on purpose so that we wouldn't follow through.
Right.
I think when most people are ready to make that true change, just like you were, they're saying, yeah, I'm going to trust the process of the individual that I'm investing in or the program, and go slow and, do what I know I can do and figure it out from there. And it's kind of that starting part that's just a catalyst for major change, which, is powerful. So I appreciate that share. So, like normally I ask what you feel is like, the one thing to truly help someone transform, but I feel like with all that you have from your past story, there may be someone on the other side of this podcast that is in a similar place to where you were maybe when you were 29 or along the journey. And I just love to hear whatever it is you feel you need to say to them to offer them some words of wisdom or advice or help?
Well, I would say, especially depending on where you're at as far as in their journey, if they're in a place where they are, if it's not necessarily even a child, but if it's even an adult who's going through something that's traumatic, abuse or whatever, don't be afraid to ask for help at the time. Don't be afraid to speak up. There's always somebody that's going to be there to help you, and because that's going to be the first thing. You've got to speak up for yourself and just get that help you need there. But as far as the fitness journey, I would say almost the same thing. You just got to, ask for help. I know some people that have probably started their fitness journey on their own, but at some point they always end up getting help, whether it's through a personal trainer or whether it's even just, just reaching out to friends or whatever. You've got to have a support system, and I think it's different for everybody on what you need. And again, I think it's just getting that courage and knowing that even if you take that risk, then that first time it doesn't work out, don't let that just be like what keeps you down. Just keep getting back up and trying, because I always tell people, I don't care what you've been through, you deserve the best in life, and you deserve to be happy. And it's important that you find those people that can help you be happy and get the help that you need, because I don't think there's anything in life that we can truly do alone or should have to do alone. And it just, for me, that's been the biggest thing, is having the whole support system. I know there are people who probably don't have, I've had people actually tell me, well, my family they don't support me. I don't have a lot of friends that support me. And well, find the support through, like I did with my personal trainer, because then they become your friends and family. So family, it doesn't mean blood. It just means those people that are going to be there for you and help you and encourage you.
Yeah, those 3 words, you deserve it, that you said. I think you need to wear a shirt that just champions that. So I appreciate that so much. Sherrie, # you deserve it.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing and just telling your story and helping people. I know people are going to take away so much from this.
Well, you're welcome, and I thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I was very honored when Michael talked to me about it and got me introduced to you. So I really appreciate it. It does mean a lot, because it just, for me, I hope there's somebody out there that can get something out of it. And if one person does, it's going to be worth sharing my story. So.
Absolutely.
So I do appreciate the opportunity.
And the other thing is, where can people find you? Because I know you mentioned that you've got a blog where you openly kind of share some stuff as well, correct? Yes, I do have it's a health and fitness blog. It's called Becoming Healthier with Sherrie. It's Sherrie. And I haven't been on there as much as I would like to be. But it's basically, my goal for that was, it initially was, it was a way for me for my output to get, to kind of help me when I'm struggling. But it's also, in return, I'm hopefully helping other people, because it's not about just getting on there and saying, okay, this is all the positive that's happened, because people need to know that through this journey, their struggle, and those people that can relate to those struggles need to know that this journey isn't all about ups. There's ups and downs in it, and getting through those downs is what's important. And that's where a lot of people need to support. So I initially called it Becoming Healthier with Sherrie, and that's the name of the blog. But I changed it once I realized that being healthy isn't just about physical.
fitness. And so I actually post things that involve, that talk about the importance of being, like I've mentioned, is being emotionally, mentally, and spiritually healthy as well. So I try to make sure I'm touching based on that. I share recipes that I find that I like, and I'll post little challenges to get people involved and give them something to do, like maybe an ab challenge, or we did a burpee challenge one time. I don't know what I was thinking, but
yeah, seriously.
But I like to not just challenge myself, but challenge other people. So, but yeah, it's something that I need to get more involved in, especially now I have the taekwondo that I could actually write about. But it's out there, and I hope that once this is up and everything, I'll be able to get this link out there and hopefully reach some more people. So.
Absolutely. We'll link that up in the show notes for everyone as well. So appreciate it again, Sherrie.
All right, my friends, thanks again for listening to another great episode. Now, I do have one request. If you know of someone that's got a amazing success story, or if you know of a transformational coach or transformation authority figure with insights and lessons that need to be shared, we'd love to talk to any of these people. There's a good chance we can have them on one of the next episodes, and they continue to help us all grow as we continue to unveil the truth of what it takes to truly transform. Last thing, love for you to head on over to iTunes and hit that 5-star review button. Helps to get this message out and continue to transform more lives. As always, my friends, Coach Joseph Hawthorne, peace be the journey.